Hey guys, it's been another busy week of movies, shows, and of course video games. Let's get into it with Reviews on the Run. All right, we got a bunch of fun stuff to talk about. Let's start with the Indie World Direct for the Nintendo Switch and now the Nintendo Switch 2 that just took place. Nintendo's in a bit of an interesting position here because they've got a new machine to get into people's hands with the Nintendo Switch 2, but a lot of indie titles will run on both Switch 1 and Switch 2. So if you are a huge indie fan and that's what you normally play and that's what you play mostly, there really isn't, I think, a huge sense of urgency to get into the Nintendo Switch 2, although Yacht Club has announced that Mina the Hollower, which is the most exciting game that I saw, and it's coming in October, but that was the most exciting thing that I saw in the Direct. I can't wait for that game. I love Yacht Club, and I love their kind of Zelda-like take on the experience that they're putting together with all kinds of cool powers and lots of cool environments to check out. It's 8-bit style, but it looks incredibly ambitious. I'm super excited about that, and Mina the Hollower will run at 120 frames per second on Nintendo Switch 2. I don't know how much that will really enhance the experience, but it's pretty cool. Almost every other game that they showed, though, will run on both platforms. I think the other big standout reveal from the Direct is that UFO 50 is now on the Switch platforms, and that is available as we speak. I've been playing that on the Steam Deck, and having this collection of 50 fake NES games that you can play anywhere, that's the way to play it. So this is an exciting release for the Switch for sure. I'm still really looking forward to Winter Burrow. This game, they just teased it a little bit. They just had a little bit of a video sequence, but we've seen it before. It looks stunning. It looks like it's going to be a nice, cozy time, and I really can't wait to play that game. And the two other cool games that caught my attention were Well Dweller and Neverway, which take and borrow from lots of established experiences that we've played before, but there's some nice cool indie twists on these. Indie games and the Nintendo Switch platforms are like chocolate and peanut butter. It's a perfect fit. I don't think this Indie World Direct was especially mind-blowing, but there was definitely some fun stuff there. It is going to be interesting to see how the relationship that Nintendo has with indie developers evolves as the Switch 2 continues to grow its install base. Maybe the Switch 1 is just going to have this nice long life as this indie player's dream system. Who knows? But I'm going to give this Direct a 7 out of 10. I went and checked out The Naked Gun this week, and man, I had a really good time with this. It's absolutely in keeping with the quirkiness and the style of the 80s Naked Gun film. Lots of gags, lots of jokes, lots of recurring themes. There's a coffee cup theme that made me crack up every single time. And what was really great about it was the commitment from Liam Neeson, who, you know, I think he always brings it. It doesn't matter how silly the concept is for whatever action movie he's in. He always kind of delivers, but he also delivered big time on the comedy sequences here. But I was actually kind of shocked by Pamela Anderson, who I've never really looked at as any kind of comedy juggernaut before, but she actually brings it and delivers. The story is insane, but it's also kind of topical. It's about, you know, this tech billionaire wanting to take over things, played by Danny Houston, who's also very solid in this movie. It's tough to kind of take any of it seriously because every second is played for a joke and a gag, but it was charming and it was a fun evening at the movies. I saw it in a packed theater and everybody was having a good time. We don't get a lot of movies like this. I think you should support movies like this where if they're just balls out comedies, and that's really what they go for. It's not like an action comedy. It's not a sci-fi comedy. It's not a buddy. It's just a comedy. It's like the comedy in the old school style of ways. It'll be interesting to see if they bring back Airplane now, but I like The Naked Gun. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Now, I'm not going to score this, but something that I streamed last weekend because it was made available on the launch day of the phenomenal Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, which I absolutely adored and reviewed last week, was Shinobi, The Art of Vengeance from Sega and Lizard Cube. They did a pretty beefy demo, and I streamed the whole thing, learned some of the core mechanics and the abilities and all this sort of ferocious combat styles and moves that you get, the ability to call in mystical powers and destroy everybody on screen. Super cool. The boss fight at the end was a real challenge for me. I felt like I was sweating. I had a bunch of people watching the stream, and my skills were being judged. The pressure was on, but I finally beat the boss, and I felt great about myself. But honestly, I love the aesthetics. I love the flow. It's an incredible feeling game. It's as fun to play as it is beautiful to look at. Music is excellent too. Sound effects are excellent. I think Sega's going to have another massive hit here, and I am just blown away by this retro resurgence that we are currently in. Lots of hack and slashing, lots of brawlers, lots of Metroidvanias. I mean, we never really deviate from that when we look at the indie space, because a lot of indie developers are always informed and influenced by classic styles like that. But it's awesome to see big brands like Ninja Gaiden and Shinobi return to form like this. I think Art of Vengeance is going to be one of the most satisfying games of 2025. I can't wait to review it. You know I will. Now, a TV show that I've been obsessed with is 1923, and it's because it stars my boy Harrison Ford. I'll watch anything with Harrison Ford in it, you guys know that. But it's also part of the huge Yellowstone empire of filmed entertainment that Taylor Sheridan has been in charge of and has now made probably billions of dollars from. But the great thing about 1923 is you don't need to have watched anything else in the Yellowstone oeuvre. You can just jump into it and enjoy the rough and tumble, sort of Old West, well, it's Montana, kind of stuff that we see with Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren and all the people that live on the Yellowstone Ranch and try to protect the ranch. But then there's also this awesome side story that explores the very romantic and globe-trotting love affair between Spencer Dutton and Alexandra Dutton, played by Brandon Sklenar and Julia Schleifer. And they have this crazy backstory with tons of violence. It starts in Africa, and they're on safaris, and then they're on cruise ships sailing from Europe to North America. And you get this fantastic sense of how long it takes for people from that era to travel anywhere and how dangerous it was to travel anywhere. And it's a really, really interesting sort of examination of that. And everybody is really solid. Timothy Dalton is in the show. Robert Patrick is in the show. It is absolutely this interesting tangent on the sort of Yellowstone myth making. But I was more entertained by this than anything else that I saw in Yellowstone. I was really surprised how much I enjoyed 1923. There's only 2 seasons. I just wrapped up on season 2. And the only problem with the show is that I don't think a lot of people are going to discover it because it's only available on Paramount Plus. But I really dug 1923. I think it's really solid. There's some cheese and there's some kind of beats that they go to over and over again. Timothy Dalton's mustache twirling evilness got a little tiresome and over the top. But it was really fun to watch. And honestly, I think the highlight for me was just watching Brandon Sklenar just own the role and kind of like measure up to Harrison Ford on his show, on the same show. And so it was cool to watch them both operate like that. And also Julia Schleifer was awesome in the show as well. I'm gonna give 1923 an 8.5 out of 10. A game I streamed this week and had a pretty damn good time with is Shadow Labyrinth from Bandai Namco. I checked this out on the ROG Ally X and it ran beautifully. It is a Metroidvania and you're hacking and slashing at all kinds of demons. You've got lots of different variety in the enemy types. There's stuff that looks like it's right out of a Metroid game, and then you're taking care of all of these little tiny warriors that are coming at you, and there's bears and you gotta kill their bear kids, which I didn't feel great about. But there's lots of combat situations that you get into, lots of puzzle solving that you get into, but none of that matters. It's a Pac-Man Metroidvania, and you've got a little orb following you named Puck, who's Pac-Man, and you have to jump on these lines called D-lines, where Pac-Man cruises and picks up power pellets, and all of that is obviously the currency to keep expanding yourself and enhancing yourself with all kinds of new abilities. There are merchants and things that you will encounter, and you're gonna have to go back to the map to try to figure out where the hell you are and where you've got to go. Checkpoints right now are way too scattered, and it does get a little bit frustrating. Some of the mechanics don't work as well as you want them to, but I'll tell you what, man, I was kind of entranced by the look and feel of this thing. It is very evocative, it's very moody and weird. It's, you know, taking a page from Hollow Knight like lots of indie titles do out there, and it's certainly lifting on some of the stuff projected in that Secret Level Amazon anthology series where they looked at all these different video games. It feels like that as well. But Shadow Labyrinth definitely got its hooks in me, and as I was playing it and chatting with people, I started to recognize that this has buried treasure written all over it. And the other thing about this game is that the developers are listening and they are patching, so it might actually become something really sweet and really tuned for people to check out. I definitely had a good time with Shadow Labyrinth. I didn't play the whole thing. I've got lots more to play, but what I did play, I would give a solid 8 out of 10 too. It's good times. And because the topic of retro revivals is such a big deal these days, I played something crazy this week. It is the 1995 version of Doom for the Super Nintendo, but it's been remade by the original developer Randy Linden in partnership with Bitmap Bureau and Limited Run Games, who's doing the publishing work on it. They sent me a full cartridge and a controller with Rumble in it for the Super Nintendo, and I had it running through my analog Super NT, which is a hardware emulation of Super Nintendo hardware with an HDMI output on it, and I was able to play this classic feeling Doom. Everything has been enhanced in the game. They've got sort of new processing, a new chip, they're calling it the FX3 chip, which they're using Raspberry Pi to kind of get there, and I don't quite understand technically what that all means. Suffice to say, this is a cartridge that will run on standard Super Nintendo hardware, and what it does is it enhances the experience in every way. They've added levels that were missing from the original release. Their frame rate bumps up like a full 100%, so it's instead of 10 frames per second like the Super Nintendo original is 20 frames per second, which sounds a little disappointing, but it actually runs pretty damn solid when you're playing this, clunky, chunky, early 3D experience. But I was having a really good time playing it. You feel the genius of id Software when you dive back into this. They nailed it on that first game, man. It was incredible, and it's really cool that now you can play the definitive Super Nintendo game. It's also an amazing story that the original person that worked on that and did a reverse engineering, basically, of the original game for Super Nintendo hardware was able to go in and kind of finish the job. Great story, super cool experience, an awesome collectible, and I'm very appreciative that Limited Run sent that out to me. I don't think it's for everybody, but if you're a collector, if you're a Doom completionist, if you are a Super Nintendo completionist, you definitely got to check this out. I'm going to give Doom 1995 for the Super Nintendo remade an 8 out of 10. And another win for retro revivals this week was Gradius Origins Collection, which I played on the Nintendo Switch 2. It ran beautifully, and it takes you through the whole history of Gradius and Salamander games. There's different versions of each of these games as well for the different territories, and the graphics right from the beginning in 1985 were so stellar, so beautiful. Love the music as well. There's of course a whole sort of museum showcase to take a look at some of the pre-production art and some of the arcade cabinet art, and they even included a brand new game in the style of these classic titles called Salamander 3, which has a feel like it was made in 1998. So freaking fun to play. I, of course, used a lot of the rewind functionality because, as we all know, these Gradius games are incredibly difficult to play, but man, they are such a blast to go back to, and this collection is truly excellent. Fantastic work by the port developers at M2. I'm going to give this collection a 9 out of 10. I also headed to the movies to see Weapons. This is the new movie from Zach Kreger, who made the very cool horror film Barbarian, which gets totally weird towards the end. But that was a really clever movie, which really knocked me on my butt. And so does Weapons. This is not necessarily like a super grotesque horror experience. It's more of a creepy, dark, super weird and twisted thriller where a bunch of kids go missing at a very specific time in this small town, and they're all from the same classroom, and there's a lot of suspicion about what the hell is going on, and all these different townspeople kind of turn on each other, and it gets really ugly. And what Zach Kreger does with the storytelling is he gives a bunch of perspectives and viewpoints for each of these different characters. The movie stars Julia Garner and Josh Brolin, and Benedict Wong is in this, and everybody is really, really good. I love the filmmaking. I love the movement of the camera. The soundtrack was really thrilling as well. It definitely got under my skin, and there are some grotesque and gruesome parts in this as well, if you're a bit squeamish like I am. It sticks in your mind. You're definitely going to be thinking about this movie. You're going to be thinking about the craftsmanship of the film as well. And what I've learned about this movie, reading a little bit about it and watching some interviews and stuff, is that this was a very kind of personal story for Zach Kreger based on things that happened to him in his life, not specifically tied to this, but through the emotions that he went through. And you can kind of feel that. It's very intelligent, very well made, expertly performed, and interesting. It's a very unique, thrilling experience at the movies. I definitely recommend you get off your butt and go to the theater and check this one out. It's quite special. I'm going to give Weapons an 8.5 out of 10. And let's talk about Mafia The Old Country. This has just come out. I got it yesterday as I'm recording this, and I streamed it for 3 straight hours. Thank you for joining me, everybody that did. And it was a lot of fun. And one thing I heard about the first 3 hours, that it's a little bit slow. It's almost like that first 3 hours in this game is all about lead up and build up and training and giving you sort of a sense of the mechanics and also defining the storytelling. You play a character named Enzo who gets brought into this family, essentially, and learns the family business, and you go on all kinds of missions where you're getting protection money and you're doing some protecting, you're getting into knife fights, and you're doing some horseback riding, which eventually leads to a pretty thrilling little horseback race, and you are escalating in your responsibilities, and there are new technologies and new abilities and new outfits and new kinds of threats and opportunities that come your way as you're building into the story. It's a beautiful looking game. I think Hangar 13 did a really nice job at defining the world. Lots and lots of details. I was playing it on the new PC that I've got in. It's the new reference PC, which has the brand new Intel CPU in there and an NVIDIA 5090 laptop GPU in there. So it's a beast, and I had everything cranked to epic, and it looked amazing. Lots of incredible shadow details. It looked super painterly, like you walk into darkened rooms and you can see like fruit bowls on the tables and stuff, and everything just looks super organic and a little crumbly and a little broken down, like cars seem out of place. And also, like when you're riding on horseback, it evokes stuff that you might see in a Red Dead Redemption game or something like that. This great sort of mix of the 19th century and the 20th century merging into the title. Aesthetically, it's just absolutely incredible. The accents, the performances from all of the actors. It's definitely a story-focused game. I've learned that it's not especially long, so I'm going to stream some more of this title, but I was very impressed, and I think you should be checking this out. Honestly, one of the things that is attractive to me about this game is that it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's not one of these open world part-time jobs that you gotta take when you pick up this thing. It's gonna tell a story, and you're gonna be enthralled by the production of it. But those first 3 hours are definitely a little slower pace, so you kind of have to stay with it. But I'm digging it so far, and I'm staying with it. What I've played so far, I give Mafia The Old Country an 8 out of 10. All right, my friends, that's it for this episode of Reviews on the Run. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel, hitting that subscribe button and that thumbs up. We will see you soon, and until then, play forever.